Welcome, everyone, to the call. I'm Kevin Kramer, and this is not the slide that is up, script a highly converting sales letter, because that's a misprint, but we do have Susie Nelson on the call, and she is ready to answer your questions about getting your Facebook group up and building leads and sales. So
Yes.
let's get it started, and I'll kick it over to Susie. And she made me do a Christopher Walken
Oh, I am so happy that you did
intro
that.
for all of you. So I'll kick it back over to her, and she'll answer your questions.
Oh,
And
Big Daddy KK, you're a treasure.
and Susie is live on the call.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Elite Q&A call. Susie here. Hi. Don't know if you know me. Um, we just spent a lot of time together a couple of days ago with the live workshop. If you're coming in at a later date, welcome. Glad that you have joined us here. So we're going to go over, I'm just going to take a couple of minutes and do kind of a brief overview of everything that we talked about in the workshop. So let me just share my screen real quick. So we talked about obviously creating a Facebook group that builds lead sales and loyalty. So not just a Facebook group, but a community, which is something that is like we discussed, a little bit different than an audience. We talked about how community is the new brand. There's this big shift going on with digital marketing lately, especially over the last couple of years, and how community can be a really, really powerful tool to gather up segments of your market and really kind of play an active role in the conversations that they're having about your brand. So we gave you the Facebook group launch plan, which is what your assignment is for this execution cycle, is kind of thinking through this and filling it out. We talked about what a community is. So it's just a specific group of people who have something really specific in common. And where those two areas meet is where all the community magic tends to happen. Let's see. We talked about how community is just a link in your marketing chain. I was talking with a couple of elite members who were here in the office attending live, and we were just talking about how I was telling them how I'm right in the middle with using community as marketing mix. I talk to a lot of community professionals who are on one side of the coin and they think that community should have absolutely nothing to do with marketing. It shouldn't touch marketing at all. And then I'm also talking to marketers who tend to think of community as more of an audience whenever they're first approaching it. And so I wanted to focus a lot on explaining how community is just a link in your marketing chain and how you shouldn't try to make it do too many things at once. You shouldn't try to use it to move people all the way through the customer value journey. So I talked about different ways you can position your community in the customer value journey. Let me see if I can find those slides. Wow, I had a lot of them, you guys. Um, Let's see. Scrolling. Here we go. Almost there. So we talked about aware and engage communities. So this is when brands use community that meets people at the aware and engage parts of the customer value journey. And this affects, how you talk to these community members. You talk to them differently if they're not your customers already. So we talked about ways to determine if that's aligned with your business goals. So if your goals are to increase brand awareness or engagement with your prospects, increasing offer awareness with tippy top of funnel content, growing retargeted lists and website traffic, if that's where, your main pain point is right now with your customer value journey, positioning community in the aware and engage section of the value journey can really help kind of optimize that process. So we went over, a couple of examples of that. Jill Stanton with Screw the 9 to 5 is wonderful at creating top of funnel content in her community. Let's see. We also talked about fitting it into the excite and ascend area of the customer value journey. So this is, for your customers, for your customers that are in the journey kind of after the sale and are using community as a way to build value. and keep them excited about how they're experiencing your brand. And that really primes them for ascension. We talked about a couple of studies where customers can spend up to 19% more with, and I think that that's a very low ball estimate, but customers and brand communities tend to spend 19% more, all the way up to 40% more, according to some studies. So it's definitely a very powerful tool because they're getting to know you and your brand that much better and getting so much more value out of that community experience. So if your goal with community is leader customer nurture, retention is a big one, maximizing customer value, increasing buyer frequency so they buy more often, and kind of from market research, identifying product and content gaps. Community can be a really, really powerful tool if you apply it at this stage in the customer value journey. And of course, how you talk to them is different as well. They don't really need a whole lot of your top of funnel content. You're just there to nurture your leads. And we talked about how 70% of customers place peer recommendations above professionally written copy, and gathering up all of your customers in this Excite Ascend community can really help foster this culture of customers talking to each other and sharing those recommendations. And I pulled this image from one of our Facebook groups, DM Engage. I'm sure you guys are all a member. Um, and how it our community basically talked this customer into an upsell pretty much. So, and how we don't take a really active role in those conversations other than introducing her to other members who can give her those peer recommendations. We also talked about advocate and promote communities. So these are communities that are positioned to equip and empower your brand advocates and promoters. So it's a super powerful tool to get them excited as well. And make sure that they're supported and learning best practices from each other and sharing their stories. It's very, very powerful. So if your business goals are to increase the number of testimonials or active promoters, affiliate sales, if you have that set up, increasing retention of the active advocates and promoters you do have, and increasing word of mouth referrals, an advocate and promote community can be a very powerful way to tap into that. We also talked about the halo effect, and I'm still very, very proud of this picture. Um, the
So
we talked about the
nice.
It's so great. We talked about the halo effect, in that if you have, an aware and engaged community, that doesn't mean that you're not going to get excited customers out of that. And if you have a community at the Excite and Ascend stage, that doesn't mean that you're not going to have advocate and promoters, but you still need to know what the primary purpose of your community is, so you know how to talk to your members appropriately about according to where they are in the journey with you. So that's just a really neat thing to keep in mind, is that you're still going to reap the fringe benefits, no matter where you place your community in the customer value journey. But it's really important to understand the primary purpose of your community. Next, we talked about who your community is for. This was my favorite part because I think that this kind of stuff is just fun because I'm a nerd. But we talked about how to identify that specific group of people through your customer avatar, through your customer avatars. And then we took a deep dive into what makes a common bond, and how behavioral psychologists have already figured out that people tend to form communities naturally around common goals, common experiences, and common interests. So we broke down all those different community types, community of action, of inquiry, innovation. There's, one, two, three, four, five, six, seven of them. So there's a lot to choose from, and a lot of different ways that you can position your community to bring value to your members. So, and you don't have to have just one community type. You can have communities of action and place. You can have communities of position and circumstance, and just on and on and on. And you can really hone in on a really specific group of people and make that community really, really strong. So we went through all of those different community types. We talked about the logistics of setting up a Facebook group, how to go about setting that up. And another big caveat here, the way that this looks could change very easily according to, the whims of Facebook. So if you're looking at this at a later date and you're like, this doesn't look anything like what the pop-up looks like whenever I go to create my group. It's just probably because Facebook made some adjustments to their platform, which is very likely. They're investing a ton in groups right now and always releasing updates. So be sure to check the Facebook platform for the most up-to-date information on creating Facebook groups, and that's available in your slide deck. And here's that slide right here and I just created a bit.ly for it. So if you want to, you can go ahead and bookmark that page because this will be out of date, I'm sure, shortly. So that is the most up-to-date information for creating a Facebook group. But we went through what we could about how to name your group and add your first person. Actually, in the live chat, Jenna was telling me that for those of you that were in the live chat during the workshop, you were adding each other as your first member, which is just super cool. That's awesome. I was very happy to hear that. We talked about how to decide if it's what's best for you as far as privacy goes, if it should be public or closed or secret. So we went through, some questions to ask yourself about that. The big thing is that public groups, anybody can join and anybody can find it. With closed groups, people can see members, but they can't see the actual content inside of the group. And you have to approve membership requests. And then, of course, secret is on lockdown. It's very secret. The group isn't searchable on Facebook. Nobody can see the members. Nobody can see the content. It's really, truly for members only. So we took a second and decided, should your group be open, closed, or secret? This is the rest of the logistics. And then we talked about growth strategies. So we talked about the importance of the concept of social density. Most new Facebook groups start off as a ghost town, so you have to work really hard to build up that conversation. And more members isn't necessarily the answer if you have not a whole lot of conversation. It's just getting the right members in there who are really passionate about talking about, whatever your community is. We talked about critical mass. That's when the majority of the content is created by members themselves. And this is a super important concept because that means you can kind of take less of an active role in initiating those conversations, and you can start moving more into a moderator role. So we talked about different growth methods. We talked about seeding, which is really a great option if you don't have a list. I know that was a big question that came up right before the workshop started, and I wanted to be sure to hit on that because it's all about reaching out to specific people, letting them know you're trying to get a community off the ground, and asking them to help you, found the group, if you will, become charter members or founding members, and really helping you to initiate those discussions and adding a whole lot of value to the group. So we talked about different people you can reach out to, how they can refer people. They probably are, your best word of mouth referrals because, they probably know people who are equally passionate. And then we talked about the second method, which is the cold open. And that's the method that we use here at Digital Marketer. No method is better than the other. It just kind of depends on, what your goals are and how fast you want to move things along. So cold open's great if you have a list and if customers have already expressed an interest in community, or if you just want to grow your community as quickly as possible. So it's literally just opening up the floodgates and letting the world know that this place exists and inviting them all in. Let's see. Oh yeah, we cautioned you against, or I should say I cautioned you
We
against
as a company.
we as a company, yeah.
The royal we.
The royal we advised you against adding members to a Facebook group automatically unless you have already built up some sort of relationship with them, because that could get really annoying really quickly, and you don't want to burn any bridges, especially if you're dealing with leads and customers who are trying to go through a value journey with you. You don't want to try to move them along that relationship too quickly. So yes, that is a feature. Use it with discretion. We talked about different ways to get the word out, your email list, your customers, linking your Facebook group to your page, including it on your support emails. And if it's, attached to a product like we have at DM Engage, you can include it on your sales pages as a value add. We are going to go through the audit. I'm going to talk about in a second. Okay, and then we talked about creating a content plan. So I talked a lot about Lavender's relationship model and how everyone who enters into your group enters in on the acquaintance stage. So they know, hopefully, if you have a good mission statement, they know they have something specific in common with everyone else. But you need to help them determine compatibility with other members. And people do that through having meaningful conversations. And by meaningful, it means, there's no fluff post. You don't ask, hey, what's your favorite color, everyone? Posts like that might get a lot of engagement, but it doesn't do anything to move people along a relationship model. So it's important to have some key pieces of content at the ready whenever you go to create these groups so that you can start creating this value for your members. Yes, we talked about self-disclosure. That's the process by which a person reveals their inner thoughts and feelings. So that's what I was talking about. That's what creates those meaningful discussions. Let's see. We talked about community guidelines and how they shouldn't read like a list of do's and don'ts. One, because people will always find a loophole and say that they didn't technically break any rules, which is super annoying if you're trying to moderate a group. And it feels much less abrasive. So guidelines, again, are a list of how you expect your members to behave, not necessarily a list of do this, don't do that. So we looked at a couple of examples. And this is a big one. We talked about it a little bit in the Facebook group yesterday, but Facebook is now moderating group content. So the things and conversations that are posted in your group have to also align with Facebook's community standards, or you run the risk of your group being disabled by Facebook. So you want to make sure that you have some guidelines in place. And that you're watching out for conversations that, are harassing or abusive or doxing. We went over doxing, which is revealing someone's personal information. That's a big one. Hate speech, things like that. Like you guys are all pretty decent people and you would know it when you see it. So, but we did talk about, the importance of, having a presence in moderating and having those guidelines there. Let's see, places to put oh yeah, remember your guidelines are a living document. Revisit them every now and then, make sure that they still align with your group. Then we covered community topic maps. So these are all those fringe topics that your community would like to talk about, other than your products and services, which I'm sure are great, but likely your community will like to talk about a lot of other stuff. So if you're focused on, building up that social density and getting your members talking to each other, these are topics that you can approach that that your members would, probably be interested in talking about. So we went over the topic map. We talked about the importance of pairing any content with discussion questions. Um, and let's see. Oh, and that's it. So we also went over the Facebook group launch audit. So we're auditing against business value, community positioning. That's positioning your community for your members so that they're getting value. We talked about creating a really good community mission statement. So your members, whenever they're, deciding whether or not to join your Facebook group, they know what your group is about. We also talked about, we'll also be measuring against the community growth plan. So do you have the details of that all hashed out? And the community guidelines and the community topic map. So, wow, I talked a lot just now, and I would love to answer any questions that you guys have about anything that we covered in the workshop on Monday. So, Kramer, hit me.
Woo!
Woo!
All right. Yeah, so that was a 10,000-foot view of the workshop. We do have a few questions that came in. I think a lot of these are going to be maybe a little outside of the workshop scope a little bit, but I think we could probably jump into them and answer them if we don't get any other questions. So we got some. Let's see. Got some more just came in. So one of the questions we have is kind of a critique on a name, because you talked about naming the groups, and this is a question for that. So, question for which is a better group name: save time in getting high ticket sales and business clients, or get high ticket sales and business clients for 7-figure small business owner? Where would you?
It kind of depends on the community mission statement. My first reaction to that is that it sounds like an ad headline. It sounds like something that's a lead magnet or an offer. Personally, I mean, I'm not telling you your baby is ugly. I'm saying this with like no other information about what this group is about. But if I were to see a group title that, I would think, oh, if I join that, someone's just going to be selling to me all the time. But maybe that's because I hang out with a group of marketers. And if I was, a business owner that wasn't a marketer, um, that would resonate with me. But it sounds like you're hitting a pain point and you're trying to like a pain point like an ad would, and trying to get someone to take an action on that. It sounds kind of direct sales to me, um, if that makes sense.
Also, Susie, keep in mind we are fully allowed, and everyone on this call should
Oh,
be
yeah.
aware that we are telling you your baby's ugly, but with love.
With love. It's
It's,
with love.
and I feel like everyone knows that on this call,
I love you guys.
especially Dave. So this is your time to get everything you
Okay.
need
I'm just,
answered, and
I will call your baby ugly.
we will be as honest and direct as we possibly can,
Yes. Thank you for that caveat. I appreciate
with
that,
with
Kevin.
respect to making sure that we are also
Yeah.
providing value to you.
Yes, I want you guys to have the best possible community start ever. So, that's where all of this is coming from love.
Yes. So we have another one: is should an awareness slash engage group be open, or can it be a closed group?
If it's aware and aware engaged, so you're meeting someone at the top of the funnel. So, it kind of depends. Um, with the thing about public groups, I'm assuming you mean public, which is Facebook's definition of it's their most open community type. So public means that anybody with a Facebook account can join at any time. There's no approval process. It's searchable by Facebook. Anybody can see the content in the group. Even if they're not a member, they can see it. So the thing about aware and engage, the thing about public communities on Facebook, public groups, is that you're going to get a whole lot of spam accounts and robots and people who want to promo their stuff and people who don't have anything to do with what your community is about. They're just there to troll people. If you're not familiar, troll is an internet term for someone who makes comments that are, I'm trying to think of a PC way to say this, makes comments that are meant to get an emotional rise out of people. They kind of want to start a fight and they're not really interested in a solution to a problem. They're just interested in getting emotional reactions out of people. So that's a troll. So it takes a lot more time and effort to monitor a public Facebook group, because you're going to get a whole lot of things that are, off topic and, not great content. And the last thing is that members, it depends on what your group's about, because do your members feel safe enough to self-disclose information about themselves and have those valuable conversations if anybody on Facebook can see it? But if you have the time and you feel like it's very important to have a public group, yes, absolutely. Go for it. Try it out. You can always make it close later if you want. Now with closed groups, you can easily do an aware engaged group that's closed. You just use it to kind of filter your membership a little bit more. You can use that questions feature and ask your members questions to make sure that more quality people are getting in there. And generally speaking, it's easier to build a community that way, because people can move through that relationship model easier if they feel like it's more socially safe to do so, and if they know that everyone else in that group are their peers in whatever sphere that your group is positioned to. So um, generally speaking, I would say close, just because I just know how much of a headache it would be to moderate a huge public community. But if you feel like that's important, please do so. Don't let me dissuade you. I wanted to show you, actually, let me see what I can find it. So this is an aware and engaged community that we talked about during the workshop
Share your screen.
from, oh, I'm sorry. Thank you, Kevin. That's why Kevin's awesome. Um, this is, yeah, now you can see it. This is an example that we talked about of an aware, engaged community during the workshop, the Screw the 9 to 5 community. And they have a free Facebook group right on their page. But this is a closed group. You still have to, um, Oh, come on. There we go. You still have to request to join. They still have to approve your request. But it's just a way that they can make sure that like only the best members are in there. So this is a great example of an aware and engaged community, but it's still closed as far as like Facebook privacy features go. So I hope that that answers your question about that. You can do either one. I think that it would be less of a headache to make it a closed group.
Sweet. All right, so we
Sweet.
got a few other questions that have come in.
Yes, this is so awesome.
So, what is the difference between the communication style in an aware and engaged community and an excite and a send community?
Love that question. Who asked that?
I believe that was Dave.
Dave, love it. So you talk to them differently for sure. And it's because they're in a different stage of the community with your brand. So they're coming in, they're just becoming aware that you exist. And they're just looking to, get to know you a little bit better. Ryan calls us a lot, know, like, and trust at this stage. I know you, I like you, I trust you. So now I'm primed to actually start making some commitments to your brand. If someone is in the excite and ascend stage, you've already built up quite a bit of collateral with them already. And so you're just trying to add on value to their experience. Let's look at some examples of content from the workshop. So this is the Screw the 9 to 5 community. I just had it pulled right up. 99% of community content should be this. No matter what community that you have, it should be something like that's inspiring conversation with your community. You don't necessarily have to follow this format or anything like that, but she's not selling anything.
Screen.
Oh my gosh, Kevin. I'm sorry, you guys.
You could just leave it on your screen
Let's
for
just
a
leave
while.
it.
Just leave it on the screen for a while.
Okay, here we go. So this is that Screw the 9 to 5 community again, and this is the content I was talking about. It's no pitching, no promo. She's asking discussion questions. She's moving people along that relationship funnel. But because this is an aware and engaged community, she does post occasionally tippy top of funnel content. So this isn't even lead magnets. She's posting just Facebook Live videos that she did on her, her business Facebook page, and then shares it in her group. This one actually had a chat bot attached to it. So she's moving people. She's using other areas of her marketing to move people on that funnel, but she's meeting them where they're at in their experience with her brand. So that's the key thing. I also talked about CMX and the types of content that they post. So this is some of their community building content. They do have a promo day where everybody can, share their blog articles, what they're working on. They also do a lot of, topical content. So, hey, this was in the news lately. What do you guys think? Let's have a discussion in this Facebook group. This is also meeting people at the aware and engaged section. So they do post lead magnets every now and then. This company does a big research report every year, the community value and metrics report. And this is a lead magnet. If you click on Carrie's post, that will ask you for your email address. But you can see that her text here is not promo-y. It's simply, disclosing information that this is available. And so it comes from a really authentic place to the community members that are there. I would probably safely assume most of the people who join the CMX Facebook group aren't CMX customers. They're just referred by other members as a way to meet other community managers and network and talk about their profession. So whenever they do drop lead magnets in here, it's meeting us right where we're at. They also do, Evan here even said, I won't bury the lead. He's not trying to copyright here, but he's just letting the community know that there is an event coming up. And it's a CMX Summit. It's a little conference for community professionals. So, again, right up our alley for everyone in that group. So the important thing is to talk to people where they're at. And I wouldn't expect this lead magnet here to convert at scale in the community. It is more of an awareness play. I want to make you aware that this exists, and then we'll follow up in other areas of our marketing, like email marketing and paid traffic and things like that. So this is definitely just more of an awareness play. She's not trying to get everyone in the group to convert on this. She's just dropping a link in there, letting people know that it exists. And so when it does hit my email box later, I'm already primed for that conversation. So whenever you're dealing with a excite and ascend community, you're doing customer nurture. You're building value to what they've already experienced with your brand. So you're not necessarily dropping in lead magnets. They're a little bit further along in their journey with your brand. So that is a big difference. Is just remember who your community is made up of, so you know how to talk to them appropriately.
Sweet, sweet, sweet. So let's see. We got some other questions. Well, we have a request that was put in
Oh,
earlier,
okay.
and this is probably like we were talking about an entirely different workshop altogether. But please provide about 10 examples of engagement posts you've done in DM Engage? Question mark. Okay, if you post them in an elite Facebook group. So
One thing I can do, can I pull up the internet on this computer, Kevin Kramer?
you surely can.
I wonder whose Facebook is logged into this.
Oh,
Where's
hopefully
the,
none of them.
it won't pop up. Yes, I can give you some examples, but a cool little trick that I wish I could show you, but the thing won't pop up. Here's some examples of some of the things that I post in there. That I talked about during the workshop. And this changes all the time, by the way. I mean, a lot of our ritual content that really seems to work, we don't really mess with that often. But, I try to do things out all the time and Engage. If you go to Engage and you click on my name on one of any posts that I've ever made ever, it'll actually pull up this new feature called a member profile, and it will show you all the recent posts that I've made in the group since like forever. So you can just scroll through it and see, all the posts that I've made and get some ideas that way. But, the main goal for posts like this is something called sense of community, which is influencing how people feel about being a part of a community. And that is covered in depth in the community management certification. I know you guys, side note, I know that I told you the wrong thing today. I told you that if you contacted customer support, they could like push your access to all the videos in that certification. That's wrong. But I did post the videos you guys were asking for, which was a concerning community platform. So that is available in the group. I don't think I can pull like every video ever, but I know that was a really popular question. So I made sure that you guys had access to that. So sorry, I lied. But I made it right, hopefully. Anyway, yes, community building content long term is an entire strategy that I could probably talk about for hours and hours and hours. But you are welcome to go to Engage and click on my name and pull up my member profile, and you can see all the different types of posts that I've made in the group, and probably comments too, actually. And kind of get a feel for how we do that. So that's an easy way to get that info.
Sweet. And along those same lines, I know we talked about that initial email that we get sent out to the list that announced the Facebook group. Were we able to find that email at all? We can.
Oh, I'll need to follow up on that. I know that we recently just changed our welcome email sequence.
Right.
So instead of one welcome email, and which is what we just used to do, I think it was just one email that was like, "Hey, welcome to lab. Here's all the stuff," and then zero after that, and it was just like office hours emails, and there weren't very many like uh, onboarding emails, I should say. So now I believe we just started implementing a whole onboarding email process, which mentions the group a whole lot more. So I think that's the delay in finding that old email. I'm sure that it exists somewhere, and I
Also,
will try to track that down.
also, if anyone in this group has been around for any amount of time, and chances are you were a new member at some point, you got one of the versions of this email that we usually
Oh
send
yeah.
out. So you can always, if you don't delete your emails, do a search and more than likely find it. I
Yeah, I
can't.
think I think the headline is just welcome to DM Lab.
I think so. Yeah.
I don't think we were all that creative with it.
Nope.
Um, but I'll try to track that down. I'm sure that we have an old copy of that somewhere. I'll have to
Yes.
hit up some people, some
Hit up.
peeps.
You got a guy.
I got a guy.
You got a guy.
I got an
All right.
email guy.
You got an email guy. All right. So we got a few more questions on more of the mechanics of using the group stuff. So one of them is if you don't automatically add members, how do you add members if it's part of a paid website membership? Just send an invite email or directly add anyway. I know we
Can you
do some
repeat that?
version.
Is that specific to Facebook groups?
Yeah. So
Okay.
if we're not automatically adding members, so if I go, I want to join this
Oh.
group, and I
Mhm.
automatically get added, it's a pay because this is what we do,
So
right?
if it's closed or secret and you need to like somehow verify that they're a customer,
Exactly.
okay, I got you now. I am so deeply sorry to tell you this. There is not an automated way to do this. I have a wonderful freelancer named Jen who is the light of my life because what she does is she handles the approval process for the DM Engage Facebook group and the removal process. It's something that I did for years and was so happy to move that over to her. But we use Facebook questions. So whenever people join, you can create a little pop-up where, it asks you to answer a question. And we ask people for the email address they use to log into Lab. And then Jen will take that email and she will look them up in our CRM, confirm that they're a Lab member, and then approve or deny their request based on that. So that is our process. It's incredibly manual and time consuming, especially if you're scaling your community out and going through a lot of requests. Jen's life, I'm sure, is not charming during and after TNC because we get a lot of requests in at that time and she has a lot of stuff to go through. So if you see Jen hanging out in the group, tell her that she's awesome and because I'm sure she'll appreciate it. But yes, it is a very, very manual process. I'm I've heard rumors that there's people who have invented like bots and plugins and things like that. But I would be very, very wary of anybody who claims that that's a viable process. One, I don't think any of them work, and two, I think that it's probably against Facebook's terms of service because it probably does scrape IDs, which is bad. So it is a manual process. Do it right. Don't get in Facebook jail. Um, yeah, that's all I got to say about that.
Yeah. Typically, anything that seems really, really convenient that Facebook has not created for you is probably something you want to stay away from.
Yes, they are very, Facebook has had a lot of, not amazing PR lately, and they are very, very deadly serious about, privacy protection, giving their users the best experience possible. So, anything that you hear like that seems, too good to be true probably is. So, at least in this point in time, I mean, who knows in the future what can happen, but right now I would be very cautious of anybody who's, promising stuff like that.
Exactly. All right, so we have some other questions here. So one of them is, um, we've got a few that are interested in this question. It might be a little outside of the scope, but I think it's still pretty relevant because of just the nature of it, and a lot of people are having this problem. So how do you increase reach inside the group? For example, the group has 180 people, but only 50 people see it.
Ah, well, if your group is small, you will see that little icon that says so many people have seen this post. Once your group gets over 350 people, you won't see that anymore. So it won't be quite so weighing on your mind because you just won't know. So that's fun. So I wanted to throw that out there. Um, increasing reaches is a hard one for groups because you can't promote posts, at least not yet. I'm sure as the group's feature develops, the monetization team at Facebook will get a hold of it, but they're not yet. um, so it reaches a difficult one. There's no way to hack it other than creating really solid community building content. I would also suggest, don't be creepy about it, but if you can friend a few people who join your community, they'll get notifications whenever you post. So maybe it's your seeds, maybe it's your key people so that they can start getting that conversation going and boosting that post up. But there's really, really not a authentic, viable way to, quote unquote, hack um, engagement on posts other than concentrating on creating really good posts. I mean, that is honestly the secret sauce and the key And it's the same thing on pages now. I mean, Facebook, I'm sure this is going to create a ton of questions. Facebook, recently made that algorithm change. And, now they're looking for community building content on their pages, and they're looking for authentic conversation that's happening. And they're actually penalizing people that try to, hack the system. So, that's why, I put so much time and effort into teaching people how to build community, because there's no way to go. I mean, there's no quick way to go about it. It's a slow game. There's not a way to hack authentic relationships. It really is just figuring out how to create really, really good content and getting your community involved.
But there must be a formula, right?
The formula is Lavender's relationship model and the sense of community theory.
Exactly. You can't hack relationships. That's a quote.
Needle point that on a pillow.
So we do have one again. So how do you set up an introduce yourself post in Facebook?
To introduce, for members to introduce themselves. I'll try to find what we used to do, but like I said in the workshop, if you're only adding, one or two people at a time, you're not adding, 50 to 100 people, it's perfectly fine and probably, encouraged and better to introduce people one at a time. Like, hey, everybody, here's so-and-so, they're a new member. You know, why don't you tell us a little about yourself? We can't wait to get to know you, that kind of stuff. It's the same as, treat them like, imagine yourself in like a real world situation and you're introducing a stranger to a group. That's kind of a helpful exercise to, try to imagine, okay, if I were a new person and my one link to this group of strangers is this admin who let me in, help them out a little, like ease that path a little bit. Ask them to answer some questions. That's what we used to do back when we did dedicated welcome posts. We would have our new members answer 3 questions about themselves, and it was questions that related to, digital marketing. One was what was it? It was, what do you do? What do you love about it? Because people, like talking about what they do. And the last question was, what's a challenge that you're having right now? Let's hear it. Let's get it out. And that is pure self-disclosure, and powerful self-disclosure. The first thing they have to do, whenever they join a group, is talk about where they're struggling, and that can be very vulnerable. And they can start getting value immediately because other members will see that and start to help them out. So asking them to answer questions is a great one, especially if you think really hard and think about, okay, what kinds of self-disclosure do I want to see from new members? Don't, you might have to test out a couple of things. You don't want them to, share too much. Like, tell me your deepest, darkest secret, would probably not fly very well. But, I think community is fun because you have so many different ways to, be creative and try different things. So that's, I think, all I got to say about that. This Q&A is really fun, by the way. I love just sitting here and rambling about community.
Yeah, see, and you were so worried about it not getting questions. So we do have some more here. So this is from a little earlier. Do we need to have a solid engagement plan, post to start discussions, in order before we launch a Facebook group, or can we plan it as we go? And I think I know the answer.
Well, the topic maps are there to help you plan out that discussion building content before you launch. I would maybe safely say, have a couple of things in your back pocket that you want to talk about. Just so, as soon as people join, they have something that they can participate in. I do. It's interesting because I'm a part of like an association of community managers. And that was actually a question that was just asked in that group yesterday. The CEO asked of this whole association that I'm in, asked, what percentage of your community content do you plan out and what is spontaneous? And these are to community managers who, most of them have, really thriving communities. They've already reached critical mass. They're, veterans, I guess. And it was straight 50-50. It was, I schedule out, ritual content for the month. And then I'm in the group every day, assessing and seeing, where I can participate in conversations, if I need to lead anything, if I need to keep some discussions going, that kind of thing. So I think it's whenever you're first starting out, you do need to have a little bit of a content plan because, like I said, people need a little encouragement to move through that relationship model, and they're all entering in on that acquaintance stage, and your role as a leader is to help them through that, and to help them make those relationships with other members, and build that value that way. So I would definitely suggest keeping some things in your back pocket, have a plan, um, to post some content and to help out your members move through that relationship model. Marcus just walked in the office.
He did.
Kevin
There.
was very confused.
All right, so let's get some more questions here. Um,
Oh, that's Marcus, our director of monetization, in case you don't know
yes,
who Marcus is.
Marcus and Richard Lynn are looking at me through the window.
Oh, that's special. Are they making faces at you?
They walked away. They needed something. They'll have to wait. Um, so we have another one that has got some people seconding. What do you do when your members start to create their own Facebook groups with the members who live in the same area?
Oh man. You can't really do anything. But the beautiful thing, I know that that sounds terrible, but the beautiful thing about community is that you can't, if you do it, if you're committed to it and you're growing it and you're investing a lot in it, and it's growing and it's thriving and you're adding new members, that's kind of, it's almost impossible to replicate, because you can't get the exact same people in that exact same environment anywhere else if you're the leader, because they won't have you there, they won't have the conversations, they won't have that the sense of community. It's gonna, I mean, they might have a sense of community in a different group, but it won't be yours. I posted an article, oh, I'm gonna have to find it because it's so good, but it's about this this company, I think in Germany, and they literally clone other companies. So they find other companies that they think are doing cool stuff, and they will clone it. So this a different name, but the exact same offer. Sometimes they use the exact same like marketing messages. There's ethical situations there, but the point I'm trying to make is that they cloned Airbnb and it didn't work. They invested tons and tons of money into it, and it failed because they could not replicate the Airbnb community. They couldn't make all of those people that had already invested in Airbnb, and they couldn't recreate that in a different company. So it's kind of, it's really cool because community is kind of, insurance. People get committed to it. If you're working really hard to build up that sense of community, they don't want to go anywhere else. So the answer to that is you can't do anything. Facebook, they let their users, use Facebook, and that's part of it. People can create groups and they can invite people, and they can invite whoever they want. You can't necessarily fight against that directly, but the way that you um, the way that you address it is that you make it to where your group is just better. Ryan always says, we believe that the best what help me out here, Kevin. What's the quote?
The best product should win, not the best marketing.
Yes. So the best community should win. So it's all about, taking a lot of time and attention to create, a better space than anywhere else. So I'm sure that's not necessarily the answer that some people want to hear, but that's kind of what it is. You can't, somebody can create a group tomorrow and try to position it the same way, and that's just kind of how the game is. Somebody, we've had people do that with digital marketer before with Engage, but we don't worry about it because it's not Engage, it's not our people all together talking, like having all those conversations. It's very, very hard to replicate that somewhere else.
Right, and kind of touching on that again with, we had a question earlier about communication between members in private message and
Mm-hmm.
how to regulate that, which again, I don't think you really can't.
You
'Cause-
really can't. You can't happen. You can't control what how members use Facebook features. What you can do. So we had an issue, an ongoing issue, I'm sure, in Engage, where members would it's very natural that, people are going through digital marketer stuff and they realize they need to hire somebody. So they would reach out and they would hire another digital marketer lab member. And sometimes that partnership did not work out. And so they would come to me and say, they're having an issue and can I reach out to this person? And all the way up to, you should remove them from the group. Because and it's great that that conversation is happening because that means that they, feel protection over this community, which is wonderful. But that's not necessarily in every case something that, I could ethically do if it's, we operate on the benefit of the doubt and I don't know the whole situation. And I don't know if I necessarily need to know the whole situation because, it's a private arrangement that happened in private outside of the group. So you can't control the way people use the group, but I mean, use like features like private messaging, but you can, help them out, if they're having an issue, I'll do my best to help in those situations, even though, I have no power over that. But, I 100% don't mind having, conversations and seeing what's up, or even, escalating it somewhere else. I mean, there's been, I, d- these situations are few and far between, but there's been some pretty serious, in my last 3 years, there have been like one or two really serious cases, and we were able to address that behind the scenes privately. Um, but that was more of a, we're trying to make sure that you have a best experience, not that we had to do something about it. So use it as an opportunity to listen to what's happening in your community and see what you can do to, drive community culture, make it a safer place. But you can't necessarily control what people are doing with the Facebook platform.
Yep, agreed. Okay, so we are coming up on the top of the hour here, about 8 minutes. So
Man.
I am going to rapid fire some questions.
Yes.
And then if we don't get to the question, always feel free to post them in the Elite Facebook group so
I
we
may or
can.
may not be hanging out there.
She might be. She kind of. It's kind of her home. So you're almost certainly guaranteed to get an answer of some sort, either from someone in the community or Susie directly, who always answers your questions anyway every day. So
I'm very proud of you guys, though. I've seen the conversation that's happened over the last 48 hours in the group and the feedback you guys are giving each other. And I'm just, it's 90% of the time I'm like, yeah, it's what they said. I don't have anything else to add to that. It's awesome. So don't underestimate your own opinions and your own knowledge, because I'm already seeing just really smart stuff happening in that group. So that's my caveat.
and
All right,
that's
rapid fire.
okay. So would it make sense to use pages for aware and engage and a closed group for convert and excite?
Yeah. We talked about that in the workshop too. That was one of the questions that one of our attendees asked. So that is also addressed somewhere in there as well.
All right. What if we had a public group for a week or two so we could send our list to the group and then closed it from that time on?
I would say you could still send your list a link to a closed group or a secret group. You would just have to spend, approvals and stuff like that. But I mean, theoretically speaking, whoever sees that link most likely, should be in your list if that's who you're sending it out to and not getting the word out any other way. If it's closed, Facebook will suggest it or to open people or public. Facebook will suggest it to people who are they think also might be interested. So there's that as well. But I mean, yeah, if that's, if you think that that's would be helpful. But like I said, if it's public, anybody can join at any time. So just be aware of that.
All right. Where can I go? Where can I get more examples of good mission statements?
Ooh, that's great. Why don't I try to see what I can dig up? I think there were 4 or 5 in these workshop slides that you can look at. And let's see. And I'll try to find a couple more. I mean, I can post some screenshots in the group. But mainly just remember you want to be able to identify, you want your members to look at it and say, finally, this is a place for me, for my specific situation or lifestyle or whatever it is. So that's really the key thing. And not make it sound like a pitch or salesy. You're not writing sales copy whenever you're writing your mission statement. You're letting your potential members know, if this is the place for them and where they can, meet with their peers and have some valuable discussion. So that's the main thing you want to get across. It's usually pretty short, but I will try probably sometime tomorrow to find just a couple more examples to show you guys.
Sweet, sweet. There's a question here. I'm not exactly sure. I think it might be similar to an AMA. So while Susie is talking, we're chatting away. Does anyone ever hold a chat time?
A chat time.
I don't know
like
if
in a
that.
group. Totally. I'm gonna make an assumption that this is like an AMA. That means ask me anything. It's internet lingo. It took off on Reddit, which is where they just had a person come in and say, hey, I'm so-and-so. Here's what I'm all about. Ask me anything for 1 hour. And all their community members would come in and ask questions. We did this a couple of times in Engage before with Molly, and I think we did one with Russ, where they could just ask them anything. And we just told them, Molly's going to be looking at this post for the next hour. She's going to answer as many questions as she can. And then after that, she has to go do her job. So
Yep.
it's a fun way to build value and engagement, especially if it's AMAs with your members themselves. I've seen a lot of communities do that, and it's really cool where they do kind of, member spotlights and prop up their members that way. So I'm assuming that's what you mean, and that is a wonderful idea.
Sweet. I think we have time for maybe one or two more. So this next one is it okay to name the group the same as your Facebook page?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Perfect. I mean, would there be any confusion with the way it would show up in a list or populate? I would imagine.
Oh, I don't think so. One of my really good friends works for a company, I should say, called Rent Prep. And they do a background check service for tenants who are looking to, or landlords who are looking to do background checks on people who will rent their property. And his Facebook group is called Rent Prep for Landlords. So his business name is right in there, and that is an aware and engaged community. He's just looking to foster some leads. So, he's just looking to create engagement with people who might be interested in using service, because that's a really long sales cycle. So he uses it as a way to, keep interest going and keep his brand, top of mind. So, yeah.
Beautiful.
I ran out of words just then.
It happens. So I got one more question here, and it is from Dave. It's please elaborate on how Facebook suggests for public groups. So I guess that's how. Do you have any insight on how that they suggest which groups that are public that you should join?
Yeah, I went over this in the workshop. Let me pull up those slides. I think it was right at the beginning here. Sorry, Dave, I'm scrolling.
Scrolling.
I also like to sing a lot.
Mm-hmm. It's
How Facebook relationship goals. Okay,
sing talking is what it's
sing
called.
talking. Oh, here we go. So this is for not just for public groups, but this also applies to closed groups because Facebook suggests those as well. This is kind of our best guess on how Facebook algorithm works for that. They've been using, Mark Zuckerberg said that he's been using AI over the last, probably 9 months or so, really getting sophisticated with suggesting groups to the right people. And these are only groups that, the groups that Facebook would think meaningful connections are happening in. So the AI behind that is a mystery. So it's better to just focus on creating those valuable connections. But according to this, this is just pulled right off of Facebook's help page. How does Facebook suggest groups for me to join? So they base it off of pages you've liked, public or closed groups your friends are members of, similar groups that you're a member of, groups that are in your neighborhood or near you. So whenever we went over all the logistics of setting up your Facebook group, we went over all the different ways to optimize for this kind of stuff. So, you have the best possible start to getting your group suggested to the right people. But again, at the end of the day, it's going to be all about those relationships building and the conversation and the value that you're giving. Because the more you can, provide value, I don't know if it's engagement levels. I don't know if it's activity rate. I don't know if it's something more complicated than that. I'm assuming it's something much, much more complicated, but because, it's Facebook and they've invested heavily in this feature. So this is our best guess on how to kind of, optimize your group whenever you create it. So take a look at that logistics video again, because we go through everything from, linking your group if you want to link it to your page, putting those tags in there, um, putting the location in there. All of that is going to help Facebook decide who to put your group in front of. So just keep that in mind. I don't have any more specific information other than that. Facebook kind of holds those cards pretty close to the chest.
Sweet, sweet, sweet. All right, so I think that is all the time that we have for
That's nuts.
questions today. I know it goes by quick, doesn't it?
It does.
So,
You guys are so great. These were awesome questions. Love
indeed,
it.
indeed. So, let's see if we So if we didn't get to your question today, we do, like I said before, we do have the Facebook group. So post in there. Use each other for feedback. Like Susie said a few minutes ago, y'all are already doing that. Y'all are the experts because she's built this great community, and that's why it's so good.
Oh,
That's why we're getting
Kevin.
all of these good questions and feedback from everybody. So definitely utilize that group. We will have the Elite Critiques call. That will definitely be where we call your baby ugly.
I'm raising my hand. Will you call me Kevin?
Yes, the lady behind the glass.
Yes. Hi. Susie here. Can you please finish out the call as Christopher Walken?
I certainly can try. So, the Elite Critique calls will be on March 15th, and that will be at 1 p.m. Central Time. And then after, Ship Day will be on the 17th. So, utilize the groups and take care of each other, and we'll see you on the next call.
Beautiful. Bye, everybody.
Bye bye, everybody.